Welcome to College Football Roundtable, your source for college football coverage, including major storylines,
playoffs,
can't miss game previews, and picks each week. Join your hosts, Dan, Rob, and Jordan at the Roundtable for a show unlike anything else. As for Football Presents, the College Football Roundtable.
All right, everybody, just in time for the New Year's Six and the College Football Playoff. Army closes its season with a win against Missouri. Air Force has a win against Louisville in the First Responder Bowl. The coaching carousel is open, and the transfer portal is going to be insane. What's up, Trash Talkers? Welcome back. We are doing a combined College Football Roundtable and Army Football Show, but you can just call it Ring Knocker Radio for the sake of brevity, as we are going in to the New Year's season, and we know that you want to get your drink on. So I am your host, Rob, the Angry Colonel, calling out of Fayetteville, North Carolina. We've got James in Oklahoma, and we've got Dano Ikebesa calling out of coastal Connecticut. And Jordan is not on because he is dealing with some things, and we will leave it at that. But first, we'll talk about our sponsor, Uniform Flag. Uniform Flag offers hand-dyed American flags donated from U.S. military uniforms. Their 11 by 14 flags carry true American spirit into your home or business in just 3 steps. 1, choose your uniform fabric. 2, Uniform Flag hand makes your flag. And 3, you proudly display it in your office or your Zoom background or whatever. Every uniform flag is dyed, sewn, and framed, and also shipped by their mighty team of veterans from Columbus, Ohio. They use proprietary die-hard technology. Basically, these colors won't run, which is very appropriate for American flag. And the veteran impact is 100% of the profits support the Ranger Lead the Way Fund. And we will start with the Army versus Missouri recap, and we will kick it over to Dan on thoughts on the game.
Well, before we get started there, let's just acknowledge that Jordan has his uniform flag, and he was all set to show it to us, and we still have not seen it because he's not here, which is unfortunate. So, Jordan, feel better. So Army beat Mizzou to win the 2021 Armed Forces Bowl by a score of 24-22. This was a real tale of two halves. Army defense failed to stop the Tigers from scoring on any of their drives in the first half, but they did hold the offense out of the end zone several times, forcing field goals, and that kept Army within 9 points of the game. So we were down 16-7 instead of 28-7, which was a huge, huge difference. In the second half, however, Army's offense came out hot, especially the fullbacks, scoring on their first 2 drives to take a 21-16 lead. These drives actually took so long that we wound up midway through the fourth quarter by the end of them. Between the drives, there was a huge momentum swing when Missouri went forward on a 4th down near midfield and got stuffed by a swarm of Army defenders led by Andre Carter. The ensuing Michigan possessions ended with a fumble and a punt. The Black Knights didn't really capitalize, had a chance to put the game away. Mizzou got the ball back with under 3 minutes left, marched down the field, scored a touchdown, leaving us with 1 minute and 11 seconds on the clock. But we got 51 yards to glory by Jabari Laws. Set up a cold tally, walk-off 41-yard field goal, and it was so awesome. James, you were at the game. What did you see?
So apologies in advance for my quick thoughts article. I wrote that while severely sleep deprived. I know it was not my finest work. I really enjoyed the game. It was the second time going to the game, both times in the press box, and I am glad that we end up there every few years. I know there's a lot of fans that want to see a little bit more diversity amongst our bowl games. I am happy to call the Armed Forces Bowl home for a lot of years. I'm glad we've gone there 3 times in the last 5 years and 4 times overall. I think it's a really good spot for us. It's a great atmosphere. Fans there, even the locals, the TCU fans, really enjoy seeing Army there. So definitely a good time. I really enjoyed it, and I'd love to see him go back.
Rob?
Yeah, well, I unfortunately was watching the game from home. However, I always think it's a good atmosphere, and we'll get into it a little bit later. But again, tough to watch games on ESPN, particularly Army games. Like most other games, it makes sense, but Army games, and we'll get into it in the good and the bad and the ugly. But it's just like what game are you guys watching? Because it seems like they're calling something completely different from what's on the screen. So again, these guys aren't a sponsor, but they should be. Varsity app, listen to Rich DeMarco call the game, because it's it's a much better opportunity, and you get better coverage just because they're with the team. They understand the offense, and they just called the game better. But we will move on.
Yeah, so Army rushed for 211 yards on 35 carries, 6 yards per carry, especially in the second half. I thought for sure they were going to wind up with like 350 yards rushing. It was amazing. Quarterback Christian Anderson went 3 of 4 passing for 60 yards. Tyler he completed his only pass, which was a touchdown to Brandon Walters. Beautiful 4th down call. Holy crap, I couldn't believe that one. Then Jabari Laws, as we said, came in late, went 2 of 4 passing in the last drive. To get the team into field goal range. Plus, he had a couple of clutch quarterback draws. Fullback Jacoby Buchanan was arguably his best game as a Black Knight. 21 carries, 68 yards, one awesome, and I do mean awesome, bulldozing touchdown run. He also continued his career stat of no negative plays this year. Actually, he's never had a negative play in 266 rushing attempts with the Army Black Knights. That's unbelievable. Fullback Tyson Riley finished with 6 carries for 34 yards. So, yeah, man. 34 of the 55 total carries were made by fullbacks, which is kind of, I think, what we needed to see, especially after the Navy game. Slotbacks were more productive in the passing game this week. Walters and Robinson had 65 yards and receptions. Isaiah Alston extended his streak to 9 catches. Army was just 4-15 on 3rd downs, but 5 of 5 on 4th downs. That must have been so mind-numbing for the Missouri defense. I mean, they looked like they were getting pissed. Army ran 64 plays. Tied for 3rd best in the FBS, also tied with the 2018's team for the fewest in the Monken era. So what you guys talk about the defense?
Yeah, I can take defense. So Mizzou came out running, which was not expected after the Tiger running back Tyler Batty was benched for the bowl game. Army looked like a deer in the headlights. As I said, they were not expecting the running game, and that's about all Missouri did on that first drive. It almost looked like they forgot they had a run defense. After that first drive resulted in a touchdown, though, they really embraced that bend, don't break defensive mindset, gave up only field goals until the 4th quarter. In hindsight, this defense's ability to adapt really was what won this game in a lot of respects. If the defense doesn't find a way to hold Mizzou to 16 points in the first half, this game isn't even close, and Missouri wins it. The defense was phenomenal in the second half. They did give up 1 touchdown. But they also gave the offense the ball back 3 times with a punt, a forced fumble, and a turnover on downs, which we mentioned before. Markel Broughton led the team with 14 total tackles. He also had the forced fumble. Cunningham finished with 13 total tackles, while Andre Carter picked up the fumble that Broughton forced and added a sack to his resume. He's now tied with All-American Will Anderson of Alabama for the most in the nation at 15.5 sacks. Eric Smith won the day, though. Army MVP honors. He had 12 tackles, 2.5 TFLs, tackles for loss, and 2 sacks. One of them was a huge sack to force Missouri to punt late. Missouri ended up with 433 total yards. Not great for Army's defense. The only other team to put up as many this year against Army was Wake Forest. The difference between those two is that Wake Forest did it on 52 plays. And Missouri took 71 plays to get those yards. And despite completing nearly 80% of their passes, Missouri often had small yardage plays, which led to 3rd down situations. They ended up 6-11 on those 3rd down situations, which is, again, what kept Army in this game. Bottom line, Black Knight defense made big plays when it mattered.
Yeah, and I'll pile on with special teams, but I do want to go back to the defense really quick and revisit the fact that, Andre Carter is tied with Will Anderson, who is the starting linebacker for Alabama in sacks for the season. So think about that. That's pretty impressive feat for an Army player to be, that's rarefied air between those two gentlemen. And I think if defensive players were scoped out a little bit more for the Heisman Trophy, Will Anderson would have been a much better pick than Aiden Hutchinson. I got it. The Michigan fans are going to be upset about that. But the truth of the matter is, 15 sacks and you're paying on a national championship team. I think either one of those guys are respectable defensive players. But again, I think Andre Carter being tied with Will Anderson is pretty impressive. Moving into special teams. So I'm going to jump past this first, and then I'm going to go to punting, and then we'll come back to the field goal kicking. But Zach Harding shows why he got invited to the NFL Players Association game. Missouri had one return of -2 yards. He had a long of 55, and all 3 punts were inside the 20, including an iron shot inside the 2-yard line. He had 2 critical punts in the second half, which basically changed the field position for the team and gave the defense a much longer field to defend. And it was a great day and a great season for Zach Harding. And then hero time. We should just have a special section just for that for this game. Jabari Laws comes in. Christian Anderson got shaken up. Tyler was shaken up as well, and they put Laws in. Laws leads the drive, gets him into field goal range. Of course, the announcer's like, "What's he doing? Why did he take the snap and just kind of run towards the center of the field or to the left hash?" And it was like, they're setting up for the kick. Hello, But you watch Coach Monken on the sideline. He's sitting right in the ref's ears, called the timeout, and then Cole Talley did what I think every kicker wants to do in their collegiate or high school or even their pro career is line up for a kick with basically no time left on the clock and win the game. And I think you couldn't have scripted a better ending to the Army football season. Tough fight through the first half, even tougher fight in the second half. Great defensive play and a game-winning kick or game-winning field goal. I mean, the only thing else that would have been better is if somebody would have been shouting laces out throughout the entire scenario.
To that point, Rob, a few people brought up to me, hey, when they centered that on the left hash, there was like 23 seconds left at the beginning of that play or something like that. There was a lot of time. And so there's a legitimate question. Hey, that's 2 plays. He could have gotten an extra, 15 yards potentially on a couple of passes there if he spikes that ball and tries to get, an extra 15 yards, makes that field goal a little bit easier for Cole Talley after having missed a 44-yarder earlier in the day. And time after time, we see, Army getting stretched one play too far in these big time matchups, right? The Michigan game in 2018, where in overtime, Kelvin Hopkins has to go back and ends up getting, sacked. I don't know if he got sacked or
he got sacked. Yeah,
he got sacked, and then they have a longer field goal than they. So I love the decision. Get to the right, get to the left hash, get to the hash that the kicker wants, put it there, and say, you know what? We're not going to let your defense make a play here. We know you got a big, scary SEC defense. Fine. Let me see your big, scary SEC special teams unit try to make a play, because it ain't going to happen, because we have one of the best special teams units in the nation, and we're going to take our kicker who's made a kick from this distance before in his career, and we're going to say, if we're going to win this game, it's going to be on the foot of Cole Talley. And that's what he did, and it worked. And had it not worked, I still would have thought it was the right decision, because time after time in these big time games, we try to stretch our offense one play too far, and it always ends up poor. Because the worst thing that could have happened there was Army takes a sack, has to spend their timeout, and now they have no timeouts, trying to get back into manageable field goal range with 18 seconds left.
Yeah, and then try and get it on the correct hash. And so
Right.
I think, from that perspective, again, we have up and down arguments about coaching all season, right? Oh, I wish the coaches would have done this or been more aggressive or made this call or whatever. So when the coach makes a call that wins the game, then people want to sharpshoot him, right? But the reality of it is like, hey, I put trust in my kicker. This kid does this all the time. I'm going to put him on the field and have him win the game. Like I said, I don't think you could have scripted it any better. That's almost as good as Rudiger coming in and getting a sack at the end of Rudy, even though we know that wasn't historically correct, but it still makes for that like movie moment. And I think you really legitimately had 2 of them. You had Jabari Laws come in off the bench. Everybody else is kind of dinged up. He's your senior. Everybody knows how well he's played up until the point where he got hurt and leads the drive to get them in position to win the game. I don't think it gets much better than that. I mean, you had hero time for 2 moments, quarterback play and then the kicker, sealing it up. I think that was just a great way to end the season. And again, like you said, in all those close games that we played before with some of the bigger teams, which would you rather have if you're Coach Monken, the win over the Power 5 school, or, have it slip away and you lose by 1 point with less than 30 seconds left on the clock?
Yeah. But, Jabari Laws himself said, I feel like I'm in a movie right now. Like it did look like that. Like that's exactly how it felt. Like you legitimately would have scripted it that way.
Yeah, and for sure, I think it went that way. But we'll move on to the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we'll kick that over to Dan to see what you think.
Yeah, so I'll start with the good. My biggest thing was just the coaching adjustments. Like sometimes I feel like the coaches go in with a game plan that they decide they're going to stick with come hell or high water. It was emphatically not what we saw this time, and it's not typically what you see again in these Power Five teams, in these Power Five games. But they brought the defense up to stop the run and get more pressure late in the second half, and that paid off big time on offense. Like they initially they were trying to run all the legs of the triple option kind of evenly, but only really those midline plays and especially those fullback plays were working. And even then, like Jacoby Buchanan was the guy hitting the hole fast enough and getting the yardage. And so for once, they just stuck with it and pounded it, and it was awesome. And in terms of them just playing it out, like Buchanan has been outstanding, and it was great to see him just get more work because he was having a good game. Passing game's been hit or miss this year, but it was excellent this time. Seems like it's always either, mind-numbing, like why can't we hit a couple of these passes, or they're awesome, and this time they were awesome, which they needed to be. Eric Smith's performance as a senior captain linebacker, yeah, he really has been great. It'd be interesting to see if he gets a chance to play at the next level. The last couple of Army middle linebackers have. Jabari Laws, again, saw him lead the team, come in, kind of validate all of his work, which has been a lot of work to come back from that gruesome injury. And then even more, just to see the whole quarterback unit actually shine as a unit, like that's amazing. And I think that this team is set up pretty well heading into next season with this same unit to see, what they can do. And, this win potentially answers some of the questions that I think we were all asking ourselves after the Navy game. Like, has this team peaked and are they headed down, or did they just hit a bump in the road? And I'm very much in the camp that they hit a bump in the road and upsets happen and it sucks, but this team is a good team and they're going to be back. And finally, Army 4-0 in the Armed Forces Bowl, 2010, 2017, 2018, 2021. Like, that's awesome. And they're 4-0 in Armed Forces coin tosses, which I never would have picked out. So thank you for that, James.
Yeah, so you got to make sure that you check that on the parlay. All right, James, so what's the bad?
Yeah, one more thing before we get to the bad. I don't know if Dan mentioned this, but the top three fullbacks are coming back next year. That's 1,000 yards between the tackles coming back in terms of production, which is incredible. I think that we could see a little bit more 2017, 2018 style Army offense next year, just because of the talent that we lose at quarterback, versus the talent we're bringing back at fullback. We will see, but definitely a possibility. I think it depends a lot on the offensive line as well. In terms of the bad, Rob mentioned it earlier, ESPN announcing. I was lucky enough to be there in person, so I didn't have to listen to it live. When I watched the game back, I had to mute it. It was pretty damn awful. It was clear that these announcers hadn't researched either team, not just Army, prior to showing up in Fort Worth. Hands down, I'd say worst of the season. I'm trying to think back. The other games on ESPN, Liberty wasn't that bad. I mean, certainly wasn't this bad. The only one that kind of rivals this for as bad as it was is the Wisconsin game on Big Ten Network. But even that wasn't this bad. I mean, they just had no idea what they were talking about. And then the only thing I'll say in terms of the team for the bad, and this is being extremely picky, so take it with a grain of salt. Fourth quarter, Brent Davis, sort of all year, what we've been talking about is lack of nuance and creativity from offensive play calling. He did a really good job at executing the game plan for the first half through the third quarter, getting the 2 touchdowns they needed in the third quarter / early fourth quarter. And then Army had 2 chances to put the game away in the fourth quarter after that Missouri fumble and a punt. And Missouri was absolutely selling out to that fullback dive. I mean, they could have just dropped a pass over. They had one safety at 10 yards in the middle, but one guy could have run to the outside, and they had to execute one pass, and it would have been a gain of 40 yards. I mean, they were just selling out to that fullback dive, and he continued to run it between the tackles. I know we're getting picky. He had a great offensive game plan. He had great play calling almost the entire game, and I know I'm being picky, but throwing back to 2010 Armed Forces Bowl, Army won that game on a 3rd and 5. They thought that they were going to run it, and Army throws a pass, picks up 17, and ends the game. So if 2010 Rich Ellerson can be that creative, I have more faith in Brent Davis. And just a couple opportunities to put the game away, he didn't, and let Missouri stay in the game.
I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, after watching what Jacoby Buchanan had done on the previous drive, 2 drives actually, to sit there and say you're going to do anything else except continue to hammer what's working. I see your point, but to stay with what was working, I did not think was a mistake in the moment.
So at least for the first drive that stalled out, I agree. You don't want to necessarily change right away. But those linebackers were about 2 yards closer to the line of scrimmage on those drives. And they took one of their linebackers that was sort of playing like a weak safety, strong, like strong middle linebacker type player. One of those, we call them Apache types, where they kind of go in and out. They took that. They basically put one guy back, and everybody else was within 3 yards of the line of scrimmage. I mean, they were just begging Army to throw anything, and we didn't. And if it was one drive, okay, I get it, but it was 2 drives in a row, and you just, after seeing the first drive, I was like, it's not going to work if we keep doing it again, and we did it again, and it didn't work. So I don't know. As I said, I'm being very picky, but.
Yeah, well, and I mean, again, hindsight always being 2020, and maybe I always, like I said, anytime T2 throws, that's like a trick play, because when he rolled out, I don't think anybody was expecting that. I know, I was like, holy cow, I can't believe this just happened. But
the thing is, he's a good passer.
Yeah.
I don't know what his stats are on the season, but he's like not the worst passer on the team. He's a better passer than he gets credit for being.
I think he has more touchdowns than he does incompletions, to be honest, just based off of the way that he throws out to look at that number, because it's going to be close, I think. And then moving on to the ugly Army defense on the first drive, and I would say the first half, it was pretty clear that they were not expecting the run, because Tyler Batty was not on was not dressing. And then his backup, I think he was a red shirt senior. That guy showed up for the game like he was trying to win his starting spot. And so he played quite well. And so it was a difficult start for the Black Knights. But again, they turned it around in the second half. Referees weren't terrible, but they had some crazy spots that were going on, and I don't know what those guys were looking at. I think they all need LASIK eye surgery. I'm sure that there's a sponsor out there somewhere. And then the only legitimately questionable call was, the late hit on Christian Anderson when he was in the end zone. Like, that was completely unnecessary and really don't need to happen. And again, MVP trophies, do we really need those? I mean, yeah, they're nice. Not sure those are the most important parts of it, because like if you're the MVP, like say in, I don't know, the Super Bowl or a national championship game, maybe that's a little bit different based off of play and performance. But when you're just handing those things out like candy on a televised game, I think that's just good for accolades. I mean, it's cool, but it's kind of like a helmet sticker, it's very routine.
So imagine Eric Smith, right, in let's say 15, 16 years from now, when he's a battalion commander and he has all his lieutenants over to the house, and he's up against his I Love Me wall there, and he's got, all these awards plus his MVP medal from the Armed Forces Bowl. Like, that's a flex. Come on, man. Don't take that away from him.
I think he should have a trophy. I think they should give him like a little mini trophy.
Yeah, well, that's fine. I don't disagree with that, but
a quick defense of both the referees and Army's defense. They called that disconcerting signals penalty on Army there on the 4th and goal from the 10-yard line. First of all, who knows what they're saying on the field? So you can't say that Army wasn't doing anything, because the only people who know were on the field. So let's leave it at that. But I also saw a lot of people on Twitter attacking Navy fans, but just in general, saying that Army is one of the most penalized teams in the nation when it comes to this, and it's dirty and X, Y, and Z. And my response is like, look, when they're doing it, it's smart to do it. When it's 4th and goal on the 10-yard line, you can afford a disconcerting signals penalty trying to mess up the kicker, because if you do that and he misses the field goal, you get away with it. They lose 3 points. If you get called for it, it's still 4th and goal from the 5. They're still going to kick the field goal. It doesn't matter, right? So like, sure, why wouldn't you do it? And people say, oh, well, it's dirty. Well, if it's that dirty, then they should make it a 15-yard penalty, automatic first down. If it's not that dirty, the rules are the way the rules are. If you're that pissed off about it, then advocate for changing the rules. But until they do, it's a 5-yard penalty. It's smart to do what they do, and they should keep doing it.
All right, so 2 points. It's 2 points, right? One thing is there's these things, we call them deception operations in the military. So get over yourself. That's the first part. The second part of it is if you are a fan of college football and you complain about something as simple as disconcerting signals, like you are really, really down into the weeds. Because I personally, my biggest concern is adjustments to the targeting rule. One of the adjustments they made is like not having the armed escort take the kid to the locker room like murder someone. So like in the grand scheme of rule changes, there are certain things that like I would like to see change, and then things that I wouldn't like to see change. And you know what? Disconcerting signals. Okay, whatever. Navy fans, before you guys consider anything, one of the long-term legacy coaches that was at your school and has a long history with your school is one of the biggest cheats in the NFL. His name is Bill Belichick. If you haven't looked at his Wikipedia page, check that out, because he may have worked at your esteemed institution and then got caught for deflated balls and stealing people's videos. So we're going to put a pin in that one, and we're going to move on. Dan, what's your take on the game?
Again, I'm just happy they stuck with what was working instead of trying to force something. Buchanan running the ball, they go to the hurry up, they leave him in there, just keep feeding him. Like that's something that they don't do enough. And not since Darnell Wolfhook really took the reins as the starting fullback his first year have we really seen them stick with the fullback who is, statistically gaining more yards than the other guys. I'm not saying that the other guys are not as good or like I don't know. I'm just, certain guys like Buchanan hits the hole hard and he's a big dude. And he doesn't have as much straight line speed as some of the other guys. So he is the right individual, the right tool for certain jobs. And this was his day. And quite frankly, in the Army-Navy game was also another Buchanan time. But there are other times when the other guys should get the ball more. They stuck with what was working. I'm happy enough.
Yeah, for me, my only thing is, again, we've talked about it ad nauseum, just the defensive play in the first half was kind of frustrating. And again, I think there's a couple penalties, like I said, that disconcerting signal one. I don't like that one either, because there's a lot of things that go on inside the trenches and all over the field that, if you don't see it, it didn't happen. And again, there's a lot of ticky-tack fouls that happen in every college football and professional football game that if they called everything, like games would be 7 hours long because you'd be adjudicating penalties the whole time. So I will leave it at that. James, your thoughts?
Yeah, I've already apologized for my poor quick thoughts article, but I had to be at work at 7:30 the next morning. So I was not in a clear state of mind writing that article. If you want to go read it, feel free. Hopefully my thoughts on the podcast augment it well enough. Bottom line up front, I'm really happy, as I said, that Army finds themselves in Fort Worth every few years. I think it's a great bowl game for us. We talked, a little bit about the defense. Overall, not a great defensive performance, given up the amount of yards that they did. But, when it came to big moments in this game, the defense made big plays. Big sacks, fourth down stuff, forced fumble, and those times holding the Missouri offense to a field goal instead of a touchdown kept Army in this game. The fact that they only gave up 22 points on over 400 yards is really a testament to how good this defense is when it matters. They made the big plays in the big moments, and that I think is I think it's the biggest reason why Army won this game. And I think why it's fitting that Eric Smith won MVP.
They have for years been a better red zone defense than defense in general. And, definitely back in the Nate Woody era, they were always like a really good red zone defense, but just not like a great defense between the 20s. And I just think it, especially in these big games, it's just because they get overmatched in terms of size and speed. It's hard not to give up plays when you have to cover guys 70 yards down the field. Condense the field down, and now you're just dealing with how well your players understand the offense and the defense, and obviously Army's going to show up much better there. So yeah, agree completely.
Yeah. But even between the 20s in this game, they did make some big plays, right? So obviously that fourth down stuff, the fumble, all this happened around midfield. So yeah, you're right that they did better in the red zone this time around and forced those field goals. As they usually do, but they even made some really big plays between the 20s, which is somewhat uncharacteristic, and I think one of the biggest reasons why Army came out on top.
All right. Yeah, that sounds good. And we'll move on to commercials. Dan, do you want to take this one, or do you want me to do it?
I will do it.
Okay.
So we, as you know by now, if you listen to this show, we are also sponsored by Craig Oxane, Vice President of Residential Lending for Draper and Kramer in Chicago. Craig is a member of the West Point class of 1994. He is based out of Chicago, but he is a licensed mortgage broker in all 50 states, and he's one of the biggest VA lenders in the country. Craig has super competitive rates. He's going to give you the best deal that he possibly can. And friends, I don't know if you guys know this, but this mortgage process is super confusing. Don't try to deal with somebody who doesn't care about you. Call center, random big box bank, mindless website, get a mortgage from China.com. Like, if you do that, that's on you. I'm telling you right now, go with someone you can trust. And honestly, this is how the West Point Network functions. Craig is helping us stay in business here at Asher Football, and we're trying to help you get a better deal on your mortgage by introducing you to a guy who can legitimately help you. And as you know, if you listen to this show, Craig does not charge lenders fees for veterans. That's a giant monster savings. We're talking like $1,300. If $1,300 does not motivate you to go get a mortgage from Craig, like, I don't even know how to help you. $1,300 is a lot of money. So, like I said, Craig Oxane, Vice President of Residential Lending from Draper and Kramer. Check him out. His link's on our website. You can just Google it. But really, just go to astrofootball.com. It's right there. You can't miss it. Plus, it's also on our weekly emails.
All right. And speaking of the weekly,
yeah, go ahead.
Emails, I'll jump in. So,
yeah.
You like Army football but hate social media? Or does your dad like Army football but hate social media? Subscribe your non-social media having dad to our mailing list. Asforfootball.com, click on subscribe. We send out 1 email per week with this week's content. It's too easy. You send it out. You get all the information that you have, podcast, early hits, late hits. And if you're interested, you can forward that email to other people that may be Army fans that just haven't picked up on As for Football. Grow the base of our fans, because guess what? We're trying to provide this coverage to you. So the more that the word gets out, the better off it's going to be. So sign up yourself, or your dad, grandma, grandpa, immediate family, anyone. Just blast them all on social, or if they're not on social media, just blast them the email anyway, and then see if they'll subscribe. It's too easy, and we will not sell your personal information. All right, so moving on to the bottom line for the Service Academy season. Army ends the season at 9-4, wins its fourth Armed Forces Bowl. Coach Mungan is 4-1 in postseason play. There's 174 consecutive games with at least 100-yard rushing. That streak spans 14 seasons. Air Force streak is 47. Navy's streak is 10. Navy, everyone's favorite linebacker, is trying to opt into the NFL draft. Just remember, if you embarrass the family, you play for Navy. And lastly, Air Force. Air Force got a strong win over Louisville that looked suspect on defense all afternoon. I mean, one of the observations that were made is guys were not popping up off the ground after the cut blocks. They were just not having it. Zeke Daniels finished 9 for 10 passing with 252 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's gross. Carried the ball 15 times for 29 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, hey, look, if you're scouting your early season for Army next year, Zeke Daniels is probably going to be a guy that we have to watch. This is arguably the best game for the Falcons this season. Air Force does have something to build on next year. 10-4 this season, and a quality win in a bowl game over an ACC opponent. In fact, all the service academies finished strong. Next year should be very competitive for the CIC. This is only the third time in the history of Service Academy football that all 3 academies ended the season with a win. You had 1985, 2017, and 2021, which is pretty interesting stat. I think it'll be a pretty tough competition for the CIC trophy next year. And then we will move on to bowl games. Dan, what are your thoughts on the bowls?
I have not watched as many bowl games as you might think, because I have watched a lot more skiing slopes than you probably have accounted for. So far I've seen the Bahamas Bowl, Northern Illinois, versus Coastal Carolina. Part of it, New Orleans Bowl, Western Kentucky versus App State. Western Kentucky looked outstanding. I mean, holy cow. UTSA versus San Diego State, and Frisco Bowl, Armed Forces Bowl, obviously. Saw the beginning of the Camellia Bowl, where Georgia State just wrecked Ball State to the surprise of no one. And, of course, I watched the only bowl I pretty much watched every play of was the First Responder Bowl with Air Force versus Louisville. And, again, Louisville's defense just did not show. Like, they were not good at all. So I'm enjoying it. I love bowl season, but I don't love it as much as skiing, especially this particular year. So what can you do?
James, what about you?
Real simple. It just means more. SEC's 0-4 now. They have 3 losses to Group of 5 teams, 1 to Texas Tech. I mean, what an awful and wonderful way to end the year for the SEC.
Yeah, for sure.
They've got two really great teams in Alabama and Georgia, and everybody else is not necessarily leaps and bounds above the other Power 5 conferences.
Yeah, they're kind of also rants. There's going to be some parity, I think, and parity is always good. I mean, that's why the NFL draft works the way that it works, is to make the games more watchable. So if there's parity in there, it's good. I've been getting wrecked on my bowl mania, and I will leave it at that. I'm like 9-12, getting destroyed. And with all the cancellations, I just don't think I'm going to bounce back. I might be even for the season on the bowl mania thing, but been watching, bits and pieces of the games here and there.
Also,
really just looking forward to the playoff. Go ahead, James.
Real quick thing. Shout out Mike Buddy. First of all, ran into him at the bowl game. Thanked us for being there in terms of me, and obviously always a class act. We love having him on the show when we do. I don't know if you guys saw what Boo Corrigan's been up to since leaving Army down at NC State, but he's claimed a baseball national championship after getting COVID removed, and now he's claimed a Holiday Bowl official victory. Not like he took home the trophy like Memphis did, because the other team canceled and the bowl gave him the trophy. No. He is going to, in the official record book for NC State athletics, put an extra win in the win column. They're going to be 10-3 this year in the NC State record book. It will be the only record book with a 10-win NC State this year, but it will be in the official NC State record book as a 10-win season. I'll leave it at that.
What's his excuse?
Excuse?
Well, I mean, I haven't been following at all. Like,
UCLA,
with NC State. So.
UCLA had COVID issues, so they opted out of the bowl, and so the bowl got canceled, and now NC State is claiming it as a victory. Even though, but by official or unofficial means, is not a victory.
Yeah. No, I get that. That's hilarious. I don't know. I was skiing, like I said. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, here's the main thing that's going to be crazy. So we've got the New Year's 6 bowls coming up, but we'll talk playoffs really quick, and then we'll wrap the show up. So college football power index right now as Alabama at 34.9% to win, Michigan at 14.7% to win, 42.5 to win for Georgia, and the Bearcats of Cincinnati are at 7.9% chance of winning their bowl game. Looking at the line on the game, Bama is, depending on which sports book you look at, up 2 touchdowns, so they're at -14. Cincy's got their work cut out for them. Michigan and Georgia, a much closer game, like a touchdown and a half, so you're 7.5 points. Quick takes on the game, Dan, and then we'll follow up with James.
I would love for Cincy to beat Bama, but I don't think there's one chance in hell that happens. Sorry. I will say we were going to go back up to Vermont and on the evening of the 31st and ski on the 1st, but we can't do that as it happens. So I will be watching these games, and I am super looking forward to them. They're pretty interesting. I think the Michigan-Georgia game is probably the most interesting bowl game of the entire bowl season so far up until the championship. I would really like to see Michigan win, even though I got a real good friend who went to Georgia and is a good friend of mine. Sorry, Bill, but rooting for Big Blue.
James, your thoughts?
Yeah, I similar to Dan. I'm hoping for Cincinnati. I don't think there's no chance in hell, but very slim chance. I think Cincinnati wins. I hope that they do. The fact that Georgia is given 42.5% chance in the FPI tells you everything you need to know about the FPI. That's ridiculous. I think the line, Ross Tucker, Army analyst, Army football analyst, said this as well. That's a really generous line for Georgia. This is going to be a really low-scoring game, at least according to a lot of experts, and I think so too. 2 really good defenses, 2 grounded pound running offenses. It's just not going to be a super high-scoring game. At least it's not expected to be. So to have a line that's a more than a touchdown is pretty crazy to me. But we'll see.
Yeah. So really quick for me, I think Bama and Cincinnati is going to be an interesting game. Like if Johnny Manziel takes a road trip to Cincy and kind of gives them some insights on how to beat Nick Saban, I don't know how to do it, but and many have tried and failed this season. But I think Bama has a good chance. But you never know if Cincinnati executes flawlessly, which they put on some pretty good performances. I wouldn't say they have had a flawless game just yet, but they've been close. If they can hit their stride, they may be able to get past Bama, and then they will have their work cut out for them between whoever wins between Michigan and Georgia, because those are both tremendously tough teams. I agree with James. I think the line should be like 3 or less points, because I think both of these teams are going to be punching pretty heavy. They're evenly matched across the defensive side of the ball, and then offense, they both have the same kind of mixture. Hey, we're going to run it at you until you choke. I think whoever has the best special teams performance or has the highest completed pass percentage is probably going to win that game between Michigan and Georgia. And given the way that Michigan passed in their last outing against Iowa, it could be some tough sledding for Georgia, but I think it'll be closer than the experts think. I don't think 7 points. I think that's way too generous a line on the game. But otherwise, hey, we're looking forward to all these games that are left in the New Year's Six. You know, the typical granddaddies of them all. You can watch the Rose Bowl parade and then watch Ohio State to try to win against a not so great Utah team without their trio of high-powered receivers, because latest news is Earth, Wind, and Fire, as they called themselves on ESPN Game Day a couple months ago. They're all sitting out. So Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave are opting in for the NFL draft. So that changes the complexion of the Rose Bowl. Not that anybody cares, but that one will be on at our house for real. Dan, what is your favorite thing of the week? And we will wrap up the show.
Yeah, so, it's been a great season watching Army end the season on a win, then went up to Mount Snow the next day, skied with my kids, then got back up there with the family and skied again. And it just outstanding to get outside. If you live in New England, you got to embrace the conditions and embrace the winter. You're just going to be a miserable bastard. So I know after Navy game, people were like, hey, Dan, you need to take a vacation. You're taking this too personally, and that was probably correct. So just my favorite thing is being able to actually get away and refresh and reset. And man, I'm not quite ready for Astro Relax yet, but I'm telling you, when it rolls around, I'm going to be ready for it. So that's my favorite thing this week.
James, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to enjoy the next couple of weeks or months off from a tiring season of writing the previews. But I similarly am super pumped about Army Lags this year. I think the first preseason poll just got released, so I'm already getting excited. And I think Army came in at number 12. So
13. The one I saw was 13, yeah.
Okay.
And that was only one of them. I don't remember which one. Gotcha.
But I'm getting super excited. Patriot League lacrosse is back, down with the ACC. They need to add another team and have a damned playoff or postseason tournament to determine a winner. I'm sick of ACC teams getting automatic bids to the tournament. It's trash. A 9-9 Syracuse doesn't deserve to go. But more for the spring and more things to talk about when Ask for Lax rolls around.
All right, everybody, and I will wrap this thing up in a nice little bow. I know it's after Christmas, but hey, whatever. Look, it's been great producing this content for you guys, both the video and the audio version. I think reaching out to the Veteran Trash Talk Nation, which is always awesome having your guys' support. Nick and Buddy and all the rest of the team there, we appreciate you guys kind of bringing us on and cross-promoting this thing. I think it's kind of cool that we veterans all can get together and kind of work on a project and have some impact to the community and also do some entertaining stuff and actually, make a little money too. But at the end of the day, we're getting close to New Year's and not everybody is with family. So, remember all those that are deployed, because there are still people that are in harm's way. There are folks that are away for training purposes all over the country or whatever. Not everyone gets Exodus. And just keep in mind, everybody else, if you haven't done it in a while, go ahead and do a buddy check, reach out and find those guys that are hurting, because it's that time of year. And, 22 a day seems like a low number, but when there's very few veterans anyway, if we keep picking ourselves off internally, that number of a national treasure is going to get smaller and smaller. So we need to just continue to reach out to those, even if they served one tour or one term or whatever it is. Reach out to those folks that you haven't talked to in a while. You'll be surprised that a quick text message, phone call, or even like snail mail. Throw a damn postcard in the mail or whatever. Just connect with somebody that you haven't talked to in a while, because people are hurting. It's the holidays, and reach out. And really, that's it. Man, sound a little bit depressing on that last note. I apologize for that, but always important to kind of, make sure that we talk about veterans issues, because veterans issues are veterans' problem, and we are the only people that are going to be able to fix it. So, we got to gather together and reach across the aisle and talk to each other. But as we get ready, keep paying attention to the website. As for Lax will be coming soon. Go Army, beat the off season, and we will see you guys here soon. Thanks.
Beat 'em.
Thanks for listening to the As for Football College Football Roundtable. Join the As for Football team on our next episode as we bring you more hot takes and college football analysis. We would also like to thank our sponsor, UniformFlag.com, where 100% of the proceeds from all purchases go to the Lead the Way Fund. Show your service and support a great cause. You can also find us at asforfootball.com and across all social media platforms. I would also like to give a quick shout out to our Globe platform presenters of our video podcast at veterantrashtalk.com.